in the room. This isn't going to be a completely hybrid event today. We're going to run online for the first session to give you a flavour of what we're doing. And then we have a form that will be sent out that Rebecca will send to the people online so we can capture your input remotely, because a lot of today is going to be spent in discussion around some of the key topics. I'm afraid I do need to go over the housekeeping for people in the room, which I forgot to do at yesterday's event. So if you need Wi-Fi, there's conference Wi-Fi you can connect to here. The Wi-Fi code is Veganuary23. Okay. We're not expecting a fire alarm today. If you do hear the alarm, your exits are clearly marked. I feel like an air hostess at this point. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. And we go to the outside of the front building. Yeah. Back to the front. And if anyone needs the facilities, the toilets are just outside and round that corner there. We kept going out that door yesterday, but then we discovered that door works as well. So you can head out that way. For the people online, I will try to keep an eye. We have other people in the room here who are going to keep an eye as well. It's hard when you're doing the presentation to see hands up as well. But we will come to you when we get to question points. And like I said, this is the start of a process. So you will have opportunity to feed in via the form that we have if there are specific things that you want us to capture. The people in the room will mostly be feeding in via post-it notes and flip charts, which we will collect up at the end of the day. If there are things that you want to share with us in the room that are confidential, priorities you think that you don't want to tell everyone else for whatever reason, then you can keep that back and put that on the form that we will send out to you later. If you want everyone to know that this was your brilliant idea or your suggestion or recommendation, please put your initials or your name on the bottom. And if you just want to be the anonymous helpful suggestion person, then that's fine too. Okay, I think we will start presentation then. So can I check with the people online? Can you see my slides at the moment? No. Okay, let's go for that then. That's okay. Up there. Where's the mouse gone? That's a problem.
It's a pain when you haven't got them.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Hopefully we can see that online and in the room at this point.
Yes, we've got it. Thanks, Patricia.
Okay, brilliant. Right, so welcome to one of 3 consultation events that we're having this week. Can I just check how many people in the room have heard of SuperGen before? Yeah, how many people have been to an event and been bored by my presentation and think that you know what we actually do? Okay, because there are a few new faces here. Okay, clicker's not working. We're going to do this manually. So this is called today in order for us to move forward to the next phase of SuperGen. SuperGen's been around for a very long time. The research councils use this as their mechanism of funding energy research across the different sectors. And I've been leading the bioenergy one for the last 12 years. There are other SuperGens. Other SuperGens are also available. They are in offshore renewable energy. There is one in networks, and there is one in the other one, looking at the back. Yeah, networks, offshore renewables. That's it, isn't it? Just the 2 now. Okay. But the 3 that are moving forward in the way you're going to hear about today are the Bioenergy Hub, the Offshore Renewable Energy Hub, and the Networks Hub. We are separately in the UK dealing with hydrogen via a different entity. I'm happy to talk about that to anybody who wants later, because I understand there will be some people in this room with hydrogen interests as well. But what we're going to do today is do some welcome and introductions. We're going to give an overview of what SuperGen actually does. I'm not going to labour this because a lot of you will have seen stuff from us before. What I want to do in some depth is take you through what the next stage looks like and how it's different to what has gone on previously, because I want your ideas for that. Most of today is about us getting stuff from you around what you think we should be doing for the next 4 years. We are inevitably constrained by what government and UKRI will allow us to do. So they've kindly said, yes, you can have 6 million quid, but we want you to do things a bit differently. Okay, so we will come on to that. So we're going to have workshop sessions where you can give that feedback. We will have lunch for the people in the room. And then we will have a chance at the end to pick up on anything that you felt hasn't been covered earlier. For the people who are online, you're going to join mostly for just the first half hour today, and then we will email out something that will allow you to feed in. We are very open to having individual conversations with people if you think that your topic or your angle on this needs further discussion. Okay, so anyone who's ever been to a SuperGen event would have seen this slide before, so I'm really not going to labour it. I'm just going to say that what we do is we do research around the entire bioenergy system, starting with resources through pre-treatment and conversion to turn it into stuff that's useful. And we then synthesize all of that by saying, what can this mean for the UK via our case studies? The bit that is relevant for you today is the stuff at the bottom. That SuperGen acts as a central focal point for all of the research community in the UK, so we can connect you to any of it, but also as that triangulation between academia, industry and policy. We've always, therefore, had some focus on impact, on working with industrial partners, working with policy partners, etc., to deliver impact. But what is changing moving forward is that that piece of the jigsaw is becoming much, much more important. So we are no longer going to be a research hub. We are going to be an impact-focused hub. But by the way, you're still doing research and you're still academics, and we're still not going to pay industry to do any of this. That's the challenge that I've sort of been given here. So this is what we have looked like in the past. You'll see lots of universities in there that you recognise and lots of industrial partners you recognise. The actual community is much bigger than this. These are the people whose lawyers were good enough to bother going through things and sign up to the agreement. And thank you to those who have already signed up for the 1-year extension on this. It just makes our life easier in terms of things like confidentiality discussions, etc., and particularly when we have policy partners in the room. So what has SuperGen done so far? On your tables in the room, there is a copy of our most recent report. We have to submit these reports annually, and that summarises everything that we've done for the last year. If I give you a few highlights from within that, the resources team, led by Ian Donison up at Aberystwyth, have been looking at options for UK feedstock production. They've been focusing on marginal land, produced some opportunity maps, looking at suitability. They've held workshops and written reports on barriers and support tools. And actually, behind the scenes, what you don't see is there has been an awful lot of communicating this back to DEFRA and to BEIS. There have been numerous meetings where they have come with specific questions, and we've convened the people in this team to answer those and provide input into it. So I think that's a really important part of what's been going on over the last year, and I hope that will continue. The pre-treatment and conversion is a little bit more practical. We've been taking lignin from wood material, turning it into bio-oil. We've been producing hydrogen from cellulose, looking at bleach fibres for paper additives, sugars for renewable transport fuel. Some of the technologies and methods we're using are the ones that you probably don't have deployed today. Ionic liquids, you will have ball mills, but ionic liquids and photocatalysis are some of the future technologies. In the next phase of the hub, I think we'll be dialing back a little bit on the proportion that is in that futuristic area. I can see people taking pictures. We're quite happy to share these slides with you afterwards. There's no problem with that. So take pictures if you like, but you will get them. We've done a lot of work on specifications of fuels in the aviation sector, in the gas sector, and moving forward, this has been particularly important recently in hydrogen. We've done a lot of inputting around the carbon balance of some of these, and you will find on our website recent reports about them. The biomass sustainability model has been a huge piece of work done between Manchester and Aston in the last few years, where we have actually deployed that to look at something like 20 odd different ways of doing bioenergy and bioproducts in the UK, and using that comparison of all those options together to extract what the key issues actually are in terms of sustainability. Do we really need to be worrying about X, or is Y more important? What are the common issues that come up no matter what crops we're using, and what are the ones that are specific to certain technologies? So that piece of work has very recently pulled together a big final synthesis report, which is under review at the moment. I think given that it's been submitted, we probably could now share that. I'm just looking at Miriam. Or at least share the outputs and the slides for people who want it. I think we should. Okay. So there's a really nice piece of work there that we are going to get out the door very soon. We get very, very fixated with greenhouse gases in the hub. It's incredibly important. It's incredibly contentious. It's really contested. And one of the things we try to do as well around that is simplify it. We have, I think, at the back, some examples of some of the stuff we've produced on the public comms side of things recently. We've produced books that are for use with secondary school age children. We have an app online now, which follows some of the logic that you will see. Have a look at the book during the break, and then you're able to go online and invent your own bioenergy system and see how sustainable it is and what influences the sustainability. So we've focused quite a bit more than we have done in the past on communication of those aspects in the last year or so. So this is why we are here today. We've been asked to bring forward an impact-focused hub. There is 17.5 million available for all three hubs. So ours is 5 million. There's this really weird way of funding academics that means that you only get given 80% of what it actually costs you. So although I say 5 million, we're actually talking 6.2 million. Okay. And I've got to have this written by the end of March. I've been asked to bring forward a proposal that has a focus on impact in all its forms. So some of what I talked about on public engagement will come under that. Supporting industrialists will come under that. Providing information to policymakers will come under that. And I think there's a certain amount around the horizon scanning and new ideas that still needs to be in there, because otherwise we can't generate future impact. We have to definitely prove that this is going to help the UK to reach net zero. Net zero has to be written all over this. And one of the other interesting things is leverage. We have been asked to ensure that the initial proposal, when it comes in, carries with it, I think it's, I'm looking at the back, 15%, 20%, 15? I think it's 15% leverage from other sources. So UKRI want to know that although they're investing 5 or 6 million, depending on how you count it, that we're actually pulling in additional support to the tune of 500,000 or so at the outset. By the end of the hub, they want that to be 60%. So they want us to be up to the level of having co-designed projects, co-funded projects, and supported projects and activities that are basically multi-million in terms of their scope. This is new. I think this is challenging in a space that is still very contested, because I think independence is important. And I'm going to come back to that. So here's a bit of detail on what the ask from UKRI is. They're asking us to take what we've done to date, which, by the way, they're very happy with, and to focus on accelerating the impact of current generation technologies. Don't read too much into generation technologies. It doesn't mean we're focusing on electricity only. It's because there are 3 hubs and the other 2 really mostly do electricity. So it's just a relic of where UKRI's original pro forma document came from. And solutions over the course of the investment. The hub must ensure knowledge transfer, exploitation of intellectual property. I would argue we've been quite good at knowledge transfer in the past and probably quite poor at exploitation of intellectual property. My position has generally been that because bioenergy is contested, it's actually much better if the hub does the generic bits and the hub provides the underpinning science and understanding, and we leave it to individual universities to partner up with individual industrialists or other bodies to carry out the exploitation. They're saying they think that they want us to move away from that and to be a bit more active and a bit more conducive towards the exploitation and be able to track that. I haven't been given a clear steer on what that might actually look like. So that's still open for discussion at the moment. There's a big bit here around making a definite contribution to net zero and a big thing about research leadership. I think that I can state that the hub has definitely led the UK's research in this effort, in this area in recent years. I would say that we have led internationally in some aspects of that as well. So I think there's a lot of evidence that you will see in the report actually around that. So I don't have any concerns about that fourth one. I don't have any concerns about the third one. I think the one that bothers me most and why you are so important today actually is that knowledge transfer bit and how we can get what goes on in the hub and the expertise that we have in academia to more effectively support how you are moving forward. Okay, so more stuff that UKRI have asked from us. Yeah, we're to be a focus for the UK research community, tick. Working in close partnership with all those things, tick. And we're going to be co-funded by BBSRC and EPSRC. The way the UK does its funding of research, it has an overarching organisation called UK Research and Innovation, and underneath that there are several different entities. One of them is the Engineering and Physical Sciences Group. It does what it says on the tin. It funds everything that is engineering and physical sciences. Most of what the hub has done to date has sat in that. There's another one called the Biological, help me out at the back, Biological and Biotechnology Scientific Research Council. Yeah, and it does all things biological. So where we're dealing with biomass, it sits across the two. And that means that if you're producing a plant, if you're growing it and you're interested in soil carbon and you're interested in what will grow where, that's BBSRC. If you're interested in the conversion of it into a liquid or gas, that's EPSRC. If you're interested in what the net environmental impact of all of that is, they go, oh, we're not sure about that. So it's handy to be co-funded. We are the only hub that is co-funded. And what that does is that allows us to move into some of the areas that I think are actually going to be more relevant moving forward. I think that it allows us to move into some of the activities around biorefining, around more bioproducts and biomaterials, synthesis of polymers and that sort of thing moving forward. We will have continued support to ensure bioenergy has a role to play in replacing fossil fuels. That's absolutely critical. But you can see the bottom bit on there, that they're looking for successful translation of research. Advanced fuels is an interesting one. Although it is specifically mentioned here, research underpinning the production of advanced fuels, I think we need to be quite careful about how we scope that. I have heard comments, anecdotally or otherwise, that the aviation sector has had rather a lot of money from DFT and other competitions in a way that other things haven't. We also have to bear in mind that there are 2 new hydrogen hubs that have been created, one for the production of hydrogen and one for the utilisation. I had assumed that some of our hydrogen effort would therefore be covered under those hydrogen hubs. They say that's not the case. So we do need to clarify this, but at the moment it looks like hydrogen from biomass stays here. BECCS for electricity is definitely here. Biofuels, whether coming through a biological or a thermochemical route, remain here, but aviation is going to have to be appropriate to the scale of TRL that we're looking at and recognizing what is happening in the wider world in terms of DFT, Innovate UK and other investments. Okay. I think we'll move on. We've been given in the call document a set of research challenges. So they've said to us, these are the things that we think you should be doing. They want us to look for new feedstocks. They want us to be thinking about ecosystem services. They do want us to be looking at biomass to hydrogen, biomaterials, biochemicals, bioproducts, biorefineries, costs and efficiency, scale up of processes. This is really interesting. So when I saw this one, I said to them, so we'll be able to use some of this money to buy some new equipment then for scaling up. And they said, oh, no, you mustn't buy any equipment. Okay. What they came back and said eventually was, if you think that the community needs equipment for testing or scale up, then it would be sensible to put in a second application alongside this to cover capital equipment. And one of the things that I want you guys to think about today is, what do you need in terms of scale up and testing, and what and where and how would it be best to access that? So that's, I think, in the session we're having straight after lunch. Carbon value chains are really important. I think everyone in this room is aware of the huge importance of carbon when it comes to biomass. And I think that a really important role of the hub here is providing that independent academic perspective that can give us integrity around the assessment of those value chains. And I think that there is an important piece here as well about financeability of this, that as I hear more and more from government, the importance of ecosystem services and the importance of land use, that isn't just about producing crops or indeed producing crops that can be used for food or materials, but about providing services such as carbon sequestration, such as flood prevention, and being able to value those. And I think today what we've seen is a lot of positioning around that and a bit of scoping around different ways that we could deliver that. But I wouldn't say that that has really mobilised to date where anyone is sitting in a position where they can bank on getting X thousand pounds per year because they are delivering these ecosystem services. So I think there's a role for us here in demonstrating and proving the viability of that in order for that sector to be able to move forward. We've been asked to look at bioenergy integration in transport. I sit on Department for Transport Science Advisory Council, and one of the things we've discussed there is that for the next 30 years, we have a big transition to make in transport. And I think there's a lot of consensus about what the endpoint looks like. A lot of small vehicles are going to be electric. A lot of big vehicles are going to be on some form of gas or other measure. The pathway to get there, and whether that moves by sector or whether that moves by region, and what the infrastructure needs are associated with that as we try to gradually transition, is far from clear. And I think there is a real question mark here around the role of bio, because if we say that bio all goes to aviation fuel, we're not going to put any into biofuels, then we're sacrificing a huge amount of carbon emissions that we could save in the next 5 to 10 years. At the moment, about 7% of transport fuel in the UK comes from biofuels. Now, if we suddenly switch that to aviation, then actually the carbon reductions are much less because we've got to refine the fuel to a much greater extent. So we lose carbon savings in the next 5 years. And I don't think that's been fully thought through at the moment. So I think that transition piece is really important. There are immense opportunities, but there are immense challenges. And I know that you're all aware of the challenges around public perception, around social acceptability, around the frustration that sometimes people just don't even seem to be able to count when it comes to, you know, stuff like carbon. It really is frustrating. There are financial challenges around banking all of this, around the soil carbon element of it, around the future of the agricultural system, the uncertainty. So there are huge challenges all around this. And one of the things that I'm also keen to get from you today is what you see the role of academia is in helping you address those challenges. academics have a unique position in being able to provide independence and trusted voices and information. And I think we need to know from you what bits are most problematic to you at the moment and for the next 5 years, where you need our help on that. So that is what I have for the introduction to what we're going to be doing today. That's the backdrop. We have a number of sessions where we're going to get you to work now, but any questions on that opening, which I think I managed in a shorter time than I did yesterday, I hope. Oh, crystal clear. Okay. I think it's something like a 14-page document on this call. So yeah, it's really long, really complicated. So this is what I want you to start with today in your tables. Now, we had hoped to have facilitators at each of your tables. That unfortunately hasn't worked out due to various people having commitments in other parts of the country today. But I want you to start with a top question there. I want you to think, this is 5 minutes on your own if you can, using the post-it notes that should be on your table. So you should have some pink ones and some yellow ones. So if you take a pink one, I want you to think of your positive experiences of working with academia in the past. What have you done where you've got good stuff from academics that has actually helped you out? And what I'm after here is, what are the factors that made that successful? What made it work? You've then got 5 minutes to think about what hasn't worked so well. What were the times when you really could have done with the academics to give you something that they didn't give you, that they gave you too late, that was wrong, you know, where you were just unable to find the right people? What are the things that have not worked as well? Let's have those on the yellow post-it note, please. And then I'm going to give you 10 minutes in total for that individually, and then we're going to have a discussion at each of your tables, and we will attempt to deploy enough people so that we get people capturing this on each of your tables. So you've got 10 minutes to think about that. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Should have said.
Craig has a question for Patricia too.
Yeah, so someone
Yeah.
online with a question. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh, more than one question. Let me have a little look. Oh, Joanna, yes, I so agree with you. Have they really thought this through? Probably not. I think there's a lot, Joanna, about what is considered to be leverage. And what they have said is that part of this can be contributions in kind. So if we look at the mechanisms that exist in other networks that have moved to this stage, what has happened is they have started funding, for example, in the networks in industrial biotechnology. They make funding available for industrialists to purchase time from academia via what they call business interaction vouchers. But then for the bigger projects, what they do is they ask industry and academia to work together and to co-fund, but the co-funding could be contributions in kind. So the industrialists may put in the time of their staff or their feedstocks or their resources in order to contribute that leveraged funding. Does that make sense? Or does that help to address the comment? Craig, I've got one from you. Sorry, Joanna, do you want to come back to me on that? I mean, I agree with you. It's a huge challenge and I don't think they've thought it through, but I have to work with the parameters of what they've given me.
No, I like what you were saying there, but it just seemed to me that just sticking with traditional industrials will not get far enough. And I think a lot of them, in bringing projects forward, are still looking at bankers and so on to invest with them, because they very often don't have enough money themselves, unless they are seriously big business. So somehow you need to drag in a few more money bags into the system.
I will take all suggestions on potential partners that we might work with in that space. Yeah, but no, I do broadly agree with you.
Mute the speaker so it doesn't go into the rest.
How do we do that?
To the more intervention settings, go to settings, choose You go device settings. Yeah, we'll just switch back to the speaker. Here's the question. We go through the mouse audio one's probably the one, is it? I think so.
Okay.
Then they'll be able to hear you, but not everybody.
Fine.
Echoes.
Right. Okay, doke. So next question I think was from Craig. Let's have a little look. Okay, so would work on sustainable biomass in developing countries still be in scope where it was producing fuels? Okay, so I think the way we square this one, Craig, is if we have UK companies involved, then yes. So I think it's legitimate for UK researchers to work with UK companies to develop technologies, business models and applications that are then played out in overseas countries. And we have been specifically asked to have an international strategy around that. But what we can't do is make it very specific to supporting particular overseas companies. It's all about giving support to UK industrialists to do more. So I did have a discussion with Department for International Trade about this recently. And they think there's plenty of export opportunities out there and want to see us moving towards that sort of supporting export of technology, export of IP and export of project ideas. But I think if it was pure research findings that were specific to overseas countries, that would be much more challenging. Does that answer?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I can understand that, and would look forward to engaging with you more going forward with the rice straw in particular.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a real difficult one because let's take rice straw as an example. You know, the British High Commission in Delhi have been working with us over the past year or so to try and get more information and more ideas around working with different entities in India for bioenergy, but they very much want to do that with an industrial focus. So I can say that there are 3 countries in the world at the moment where we've had a specific approach by UK government to work with our counterparts on the research side in those countries, but also with industrialists. And the vision of UK government is that industry will fund these joint initiatives long term. Now, I know that doesn't work for SMEs like you. So I am having conversations with, I'll just say at the moment, other organisations in the UK who would be able to support the SME element of that. And I hope to get to a situation where we would have joint funded projects in the hub where industry would fund part, the hub would fund part by funding the academics, and that if the industry involved was an SME, then we would be able to find a way of supporting that through centralised funds. But I'm still working on that at the moment. So that's where I hope to get to.
Sounds exciting. Great.
Yeah. That's Friday's job. Joanna, now we're out of the EU, are we still getting into Marie Curie system? So the answer to that is for the moment, yes, but the mood music isn't looking great. There was an announcement came from Bayes last Friday night that seemed to be, to my mind, putting another nail in the coffin, but the official position is still that we are working towards an agreement on Horizon Europe. I'm not seeing much positive increment around that, I'll be perfectly honest with you. But the position at the moment is that the UK is still eligible. The UK can still apply for funds. The reality of what we're seeing in academia is that many partners don't really want us in because they're uncertain of what the future of the UK is. They certainly don't want us to lead projects. So it is difficult. And I do agree with you that the Marie Curie system worked really well. There are moves within government to develop alternatives. At the moment, those seem to be progressing on a country by country basis. But I think that, you know, those will accelerate. And I think, you know, government is very well aware of the challenge and the problem, and there will be mechanisms put in place. I'll give an example. we have in Supergem been working quite extensively with the Nordic region, where there is an equivalent to Supergen existing that covers Norway, Sweden. And just last month, I think, or the month before, the UKRI put out a scheme whereby UK researchers can apply for things in the UK and the Nordics can apply in the Nordic region, and the two can be co-funded. So that has happened in the last few months with the Nordic region. It has also happened with Ireland in the last few months. There was an agreement reached on that one in December. And there is a partial agreement in place with the US in that respect. It covers the NSF program, but it doesn't at the moment cover DOE and one or two others that we would probably be more interested in. We're working towards similar in Brazil. And I think you're aware that we've been doing quite a lot with India on that front. So I think there are certain priority countries where there's a lot of effort going into those mutual relationships. But at the moment, there isn't a big blanket scheme that we could just tap into like the Marie Curie one. But at the moment, we still can do Marie Curie. So we're going to do it while we can. I am going to say for those online who might be interested that although I am talking about Supergen today, if people are really keen on the prospect of getting involved with, the Marie Curie was great, but it also was allowing people to focus on PhD development and doing PhDs in this space. There is a big call out for centres for doctoral training. And I am personally, with my Aston hat on, I'm working with Warwick, Nottingham and Queen's Belfast at the moment to put together a proposal for a centre for doctoral training in negative emission technologies with biomass for the UK. So if you are interested in getting involved around doctoral training or have projects that might be suitable for PhD students in biomass and negative emissions, then do get in touch and we can possibly try and wrap that up into that proposal rather than the direct Supergen one. Okay, have I answered everything that everyone on the chat had? I think I have. So I think the message for you joining us remotely is that we're going to focus on things in the room for the next few hours, but you will get a form inviting you to give your feedback and in particular to identify any priorities that you have. And I think you all know our contact details and our door is always open. We have until 23rd of March to get this all together. I will be sending something out for the academics next week around, getting specific people to get explicitly involved in the proposal. But I think for the industrialists, it's just, if you have something that you think will fit, if you want to explore what you might be able to do with us in the future, please reach out directly to Emma and Rebecca, and we'll arrange a one-to-one discussion. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Great to have your input. I wish you were all here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.